Hello, YouTube viewers. Welcome to my show, Computer Wednesday. In today's episode, we're going to discuss a very interesting topic of mobile as a PC replacement. So let's dive right into it. Now, first thing you have to understand, why the hell do you want to do that? Well, simple, in simplest sense, you have to understand at the very beginning of the smartphone craze, the processors that were used in our smartphone, they were nowhere near. Like at that time, the RAM was counted in like megabytes, like 512 megabyte of RAM. But nowadays, our RAM is like in gigabytes, as in 12 gigabytes, and I'm using only 16 gigabyte in my desktop. So you can understand, like it's getting very big. And in terms of processor, also, went from like a single core affair to double core to 8 core to sometimes you can have 12 cores and all that. So mobile processor at this point in time is powerful enough. Now Android, in terms of operating system, is like how powerful this operating system is in terms of this market share. It has exceeded Windows, which was the previous king. So that is a very big step. That means there are more Android operating system than there are Windows operating system. That means almost every Tom, Dick and Harry has experience with this. Now we have it with us all the time. Like most of us are glued to our phone one way or the another. It's either always on your face or in your pocket, so you already have it, like it's with you, and it's cheaper. You have to understand it in this way. Like let's say the best phone you want to have, smartphone, it's generally, let's say, less than $1,000. Well, practically speaking, it's less than $500, but you get the point. Like let's say $1,000 is a cap. Now here's the deal. Like in computer industry, like in desktop, I'm not even talking best of the best hardware. Like that could be the price of just a graphics card, and I'm not talking best of the best out there. Like that would be like okay, high end ish kind of thing. And you have to understand, when you have a processor, you have a good motherboard, you have a good graphics card, your power supply, your budget goes up way too drastically. Like $2,000 to $5,000 is nothing for a desktop PC. So it's cheaper, relatively speaking. Now, can you do this directly with your mobile phone? Short answer, no. Why? Well, your mobile has one serious issue, that is it does not have an output or an input. It just have combined both of them. So the touch screen where you see things is the output device, but where you tap it, it becomes an input device. Problem with that, your hand itself is obstructing most of the time. It's like when you have keypad, like you are not seeing that whole section. That whole section has been blocked up. So problem is, either it's not the best input device, it's not the best output device. So it's not like compared to your keyboard. So for that reason, we have to have something separate. We have to have something dedicated. You have to have keyboard and mouse. Now be mindful, mouse does not work with iOS system. Even though they are allowing it in the basically iOS for tablet division, they are not allowing it on iPhone. So your mileage may vary. Flat out, mouse does not work with Apple system. However, Android has native support for it, but does not mean that it will work with every application or it will work the way you want it to. It will work. It's just you may think like, okay, I'm gonna select something, right click, copy paste. Yeah, that's not how it works. Like you can select things, but copy pasting and all that's very difficult. So keyboard support is like around the board. That's the biggest thing. Like many times you have to just type down some notes or reply a big email and all that. Having a small keyboard like this or foldable keyboards, which are quite amazing nowadays, you can get them for quite cheap, and it has like even touchpad built into it. So you can do a lot of work, like actual work. Like if you all you have to do is like type down notes and things of that nature, you can do a lot of work utilizing these things. Now you can solve the keyboard mouse issue without expending too much money. However, you have to understand this. The biggest problem, like even if you did this, like let's say your mobile supported it and the app that you use most of the time supports all what you wish to do, awesome. Here's the deal. If you directly focused on that 4-inch or 6-inch mobile phone, your eye is gonna hurt a lot. Like think of it this way, like even though this has same resolution as my mobile phone, full HD, my eyes can travel from this point to that point, to that point, to this point. Like my eyes have a lot of travel. But when you are focused on a mobile phone, unless you have like directly it glued to your face like a Google Cardboard, you literally have to like read so closely. That's a very fatiguing. Over time it will hurt you. So we have to have a dedicated display, external display. So that's what the first thing we are doing. We're just turning our mobile phone into a simple CPU. Basically it's just like you do the processing, let display take care of the output part, let keyboard mouse take care of the input part, not do everything all in one. So you can utilize your normal TV or a monitor. Now these two are bare minimum. Like you have to have an external display for ability to use it any long term, and you have to have keyboard and mouse for actual utilization. However, if you are serious about this, if you're like, okay, I really want to try this, like many people are trying to do this because of minimalism. They just want to have simple ideas. They're like, I don't want to like come home and like start my computer and all that, or have an entire desktop, or have a laptop, or have a tablet. I just want to have one thing. In those sort of scenario, if you are like that serious, you have to get into power plus port adapters, basically hub. You have to get something like this. Now these are available for many specific phones, like Huawei makes some of the interesting ones. Samsung have a very dedicated one which has, like, from your Ethernet to your USB to all charging systems and all that, and that is quite necessary. So you don't want to be like, okay, I just plugged my phone and now I'm utilizing my basically Bluetooth keyboard. Problem is, what happens if it gets discharged? It will happen. So if you want to be a reliable system, you have to use wired systems. You don't have to worry about mouse. Now then the problem becomes like you have only one port in your mobile phone. So this sort of hub becomes quite useful. So you can have a display, you can charge the mobile phone while it's working, so you don't have to worry about like, hey, my mobile phone is like, it's gonna die, so I have only 1 hour of work left. I can only do 1 hour of work. So in those sort of scenarios, you have to understand, like, this becomes a really useful tool. Or for most people who are only doing either content consumption, either doing just a lot of write up, basically they have to write up a lot of things. In those sort of scenarios, right now, as of now, as in 2019, you can easily do it right now. You can flat out remove your desktop. Like, you have to get a hub, and you have to make sure whether your mouse, basically keyboard mouse, is supported with your mobile phone, and like, you have to do some testing, but right now it can be done. So people who do just lightweight basically accounting and all that, or people who do a lot of write-ups, log write-ups and all that, easily right now, HR, easily right now they can do this flat out. You don't even have to worry about those things. So it is doable, but you just have to pay more attention if you want to do this seriously to the hub part. You can buy Asus gaming phone, which has a very interesting hub design, where it has like, display output, multiple USB, so you can like, copy paste from mobile, portable hard drives and all that, because it has power input. So these are the tools that you need to truly make your mobile phone. So you can have the dream of like, going to the office and just putting out your mobile phone and working, and then putting it around and just going to home. So it can be done right now if your workload is not very specific. Now let's talk about the software. Now again, hardware itself is not good enough. You have to understand, you must have synergy between hardware and software. If you don't, well, you did. So right now, that's the biggest problem with Android. Like, you can see, like, flat out, this is a Samsung desk, this is a Huawei desktop environment. So these are quite it looks like a desktop. That's the whole point. Like, the first thing you will see, oh, it's like I can have two independent windows, and it has a taskbar, it has icons and all that. It looks like a desktop. It is a desktop. Problem is, these are made by the companies, not made by Google. So that's a problem. Like, this one will not work with this one, or this one will not work with this one. So you can literally have different experiences. So you're like, hey, I used the Google Samsung one, it was quite amazing. I used the Huawei one, but I like the fact that they turn your mobile phone into a touchpad. So you can have like a normal keyboard, and just on the side, instead of getting a mouse, you can just have a normal touchpad. So it's quite amazing. So you have to understand, it's not here. So I think they are adding it with a firmware and all that. It can be done. It's just, problem is, somebody has to be there. Like, on top, it's like, okay, like how it is in terms of a computer, it's like Windows is that, overload. It's like, hey, this is the software protocol, this is how you're supposed to be, and then the hardware manufacturer take care of the hardware part, and the app developer take care of the basically the requirements for the Windows. So Windows acts as a mediator between these two aspects. So we do not have that yet. So Google has to jump into this. Google have to develop a Windows environment, basically quote unquote desktop environment. So that is the biggest problem right now, and apps have to be developed in such a way that they have dual outputs, basically dual mode, basically mobile mode and desktop mode. Now you may think your mobile phone has enough information, but think of it this way, like if you are dealing with YouTube and all that, like I am doing this, whenever I open analytics app in my basically mobile phone, the most of the detail is very small amount of detail I can see. Like at a glance I can only see a small amount, but it's not about the lack of pixel, because you have to understand, like full HD is full HD. So I have the same amount of pixel, but the amount of information that I can receive is very low, and I cannot change it. I cannot be like, okay, just make the font smaller. It simply does not have enough rows of it. Like in terms of my desktop, I can have like, little bit of information here, little bit of information here. I can have a lot of information in here, but mobile phone will not allow you to do that. Best it will do, like it will shrink the font size, and you will have like, a bit more linear option. So it does not utilize the display as it's supposed to for a desktop application. So that is why, like, and there is a good reason for it. Like when you are using your thumb, the desktop experience will be bad for you. So in those sort of scenario, it does make sense, but it has to have dual mode for making a mobile phone into a true desktop replacement. So there's a lot of improvement needed for the software side. Now let's talk about the hardware. Like Again, software and hardware both has to work. Now you have to understand, the first thing people will think, can it ever be as powerful as basically a desktop PC? Short answer, no, just no. Physics does not allow it. It's not about politics, it's not about trade regulations, it's not about technology, it's not about patents. Physics does not allow you to do that. Think of it this way: if I tell you there is a 10 nanometer processing unit, that's the whole point. The transistor that you have is 10 nanometer. How much of it can you pack in this small one versus this big one versus this giant one? You will flat out say this giant one will have more, and that's true. That's the whole point. The silicon that is used in your mobile processor is sometimes more or less the exact same one that may be used for basically desktop processor and all that. And even if you were like, no, mobile processor is reaching to 5 nanometer and desktop only reaches to 7 nanometer, it has so much more room, space, and heat dissipation that is very critical, that it can truly do this. Like, it can actually utilize the technology it has. To give you a context of this, think of it in this way: mobile, basically the desktop environment used to have 2 gigahertz to 3 gigahertz very early on we had, but it took 10 years to only reach us to 4 gigahertz. Now here's the very early overclockers, they were utilizing fancy cooling systems or liquid nitrogen cooling to reach 8 gigahertz. So why don't we have this is 10 years ago, so why don't we have this whole transition to our processor being faster by default? The reason is, like, if you take 2 gigahertz processor, let's say its heat output is 100 watt, you're like, okay, cool, awesome, let's double it, let's go to 4 gigahertz, so and I'll put a beefier cooler for 200 watts. That's not how it works. Like, your height will go from 100 watts to 500 watt when you double the frequency. The frequency exponentially increases your heat output. That is why, even though the Snapdragon processor can easily run, like, it has the capability to run at 4 gigahertz, they will not allow you to do that simply because it will heat up the phone. And yeah, there are some people who try to make gaming consoles out of that, and the first thing they did is just plonk a giant heatsink on the processor, and it does work. Like, if you can cool the processor, Snapdragon can go to very high speeds, even Exynos, even Kirin system. But again, they are designed for mobile, so they do not allow you to do that. So same technology is used for your mobile processor and your basically desktop PC. So inherently you cannot expect in any time where, like, or mobile has just replaced the desktop. That will never happen. So because you have to, like, it's simple physics. Like, how much magic can you put into 1 liter bottle? 1 liter bottle. How much magic you can put into 2 liter bottle? Again, 2 liter. So that is why hardware is simple. We will never have a scenario where you're like, quote unquote pro performance. That Apple gimmick, yeah, no, just no. You can say it's better than my past. That's absolutely true. It's like mobile phone has come a long way, but can I expect to see like 4 gigahertz processor on mobile anytime soon? No. Like, again, I hope it will happen, but I am pretty sure it will take very long time. Like, before that we will have 24 cores and all that. So that is the hardware side of it. Now, can in future, for most people like who do not do very heavy things, like they are not doing programming, they are not doing video editing, and they're like just average Joe basically, can they utilize their mobile phone as a desktop replacement permanently? Short answer, it requires certain things. The first thing that has to change is basically cloud computing has to come to fruition. Right now, I told you, like, if you are doing lightweight work, it's quite easy right now. Now if you want to do something heavy, if you have cloud computing, it removes the biggest bottleneck of the processor can now, heck, it could tone down. Like, you could have a scenario where it's like, okay, you are connecting in a dock. Now it has a wired connection, optical connection to, let's say, the server. It has low enough latency, it's gonna downclock itself, and all it's acting as a bridge between the server computers and your input and output device. So in those sort of scenarios, it can do heavy things. Like, heck, you could directly edit 8K video files, because the file being all your mobile is doing is just converting file from one format to another, live conversion, and it's just sending it to the server is doing the transcoding, the editing and all that. So you can easily do that. You can do that today. It's just the network infrastructure is not good enough. So once we have cloud computing sorted out, right now we have cloud storage sorted out. That's what your email is. So cloud storage, we got that, but cloud computing, we still have some room to grow. So once that happens, yeah, then at that point people will like, yeah, I just bring my phone. You can literally expect to see this in like offices and especially startups and all that. They will just like, yeah, we cannot afford to buy fancy powerful computers and all that. We'll just gonna utilize, let's say, Amazon Web Services and all that. It's just plonk it down there. They're just gonna have a client on the mobile phone and this keyboard mouse. Awesome. So cloud computing could make this very quick reality. Then applications have to be polished much more. Like, flat out applications need different kind of a mindset going around. Right now the applications are built for mobile phone. It's like lightweight. They want to make it simple. Again, that's awesome for mobile phone, but for desktop it has to go in completely different direction. Then USB-C is also a very critical key of this component, because USB-C has been built with a lot of insight from all our previous mistakes. So this interface, specifically USB-C 4, basically 4.0 standard, it will also have display input built into it. So that way you can have an easily scenario where you no longer have to worry about whether my mobile has display out or not, because the display output, people wanted to do that, people wanted to make it absolute. It's just that it was an independent protocol. So you have to have a TV that will support it, you have to have a mobile that supports it. Now it will be embedded in the USB itself. Like if you have good USB controller, by default it will have that. Utilizing it or not utilizing it, that is up to you. So that will make it quite easy. So you're just gonna have a future where it's just like USB-C, you plug it in, your TV is connected. And right now you can do that with let's say mini Apple laptop and LG monitors, which has like USB-C charging ability. So basically you connect it on the same wire, it's receiving the display signal and charging the laptop right now, so it can easily charge your mobile. So USB-C can make this quite practical, like where you every port, all you have is just USB-C. You don't have to worry about many things, like what port it is, what some generation it is, like whether it's a display port, whether it's HDMI, whether it's DVI. You don't have to worry about those things. So USB-C could help us move along that way. And unified architecture, now this is the magical bullet. Basically Windows did try that. You have to understand, Windows was like losing the market in terms of mobile, and they realized quite early on the biggest advantage they have compared to other things is they have the desktop environment. What if they ported that desktop environment to the mobile environment? And that was the project mobile Windows RT. Now problem with that is the desktop environment that Windows built was built for x86 architecture, the Intel's architecture, and Intel has only licensed x86 to basically AMD. So AMD and Intel are the only company that can make x86 architecture, and x86 is not something that like you can just change. It's not one thing that you can change. It's like if you change that, you have to rebuild everything, and I mean down to the kernel, I mean down to every single driver have to be redone. So Windows did try that, but it was not successful, and they did not pour enough money into it. Like there is a point of brute force, you can like force it to solve it, and it can be done, like because modern processors are beefy enough that most of the old applications can be run right now natively. It does have enough what we call teraflops. It has that. It's not teraflops into mobile for processor, it's just gigaflops, but it can be done. It's just that somebody has to port the x86 into ARM system. That cannot be done. However, Linux have Linux, I'm saying Android has a native advantage here, is that x80 they do not have to suffer from x86, because the core architecture is Linux, which has been used in almost everything from ARM architecture to x86 architecture. So in tomorrow, let's say the architecture grows to a point where it's like desktop only, it can be done, like because the Linux backbone that is there, it is easy to do, not impossible, easy to do. So, and what if some magical thing happens, like RISC-V takes off, and like RISC-V was built as a architecture replacement for x86. So, and it has a lot of things that they learned from ARM and everything else basically. So it is designed from day one to be replacement for everything. Basically, it can replace the ARM low power division, and it can replace the x86 the server division. So it, let's say it takes off, then they don't even have to worry about the kernel and all that. They have to be like, okay, that's it, this processor, and every application you will buy or every application you will select, it will simply say, yeah, it will not work on mobile because it requires too much power. Or it will be like, yeah, mobile, it will reduce the frame rate to, let's say, from 60 from your desktop to 15 if it detects your mobile hardware is not enough. So in those scenarios, even porting won't be an issue. It will simply throttle down the performance. So we can see a few, like I can envision a future, because few things will definitely happen. Polishing app, many companies have already started it. Cloud computing, unstoppable at this point. USB-C, slowly but it's reaching, and the moment USB-C comes to iPhone, which sooner or later it will come, because it already came into iOS, it has only come to iMobile, I'm saying just iPhone. The moment it reaches there, like USB-C will come absolute. Now unified architecture, that's a bit tricky part, but technically Linux is already that. So I can see a bright future where most people can easily just like, yeah, I'm done with my desktop or laptop. Mobile can be good enough. Yeah, they will have their TV or display and all that, and they will have fancy docks, but we can reach a point where this is like, desktops are only for people who are like, doing very heavy application things or security intensive. You don't want everything security based on cloud. So this was my presentation on basically using your mobile phone as a desktop replacement. I hope you liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I would urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me your extra disappointment, and please leave a comment because I reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.